Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Stop scrolling right now. Put your phone down, turn up the volume, and buckle in, because what just happened in Minneapolis is the kind of off-season chaos that franchise histories get written around. In the span of 48 hours, the Minnesota Vikings got hit with 3 consecutive bombshells that have sent the entire NFC North into a frenzy. We're talking about a $15.6 million contract albatross hanging around the neck of a franchise desperate for answers. We're talking about a legendary player closing the book on his career with a confession that will haunt U.S. Bank Stadium for years. And we're talking about a sighting that sent Viking Nation spiraling into 48 hours of pure speculation before the truth came crashing down like a game-winning interception in the fourth quarter. This is the story of a franchise at a crossroads. This is the story of how the Minnesota Vikings entered March looking like a team on the verge of something special and emerged looking like they're still trying to figure out who they actually are. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why every decision Minnesota makes between now and opening day will determine whether this team finally breaks through or falls short one more time. The tightest noose in football. Let's start with the number that has Minnesota's front office sweating through their suits: $15.6 million. That's the cap hit for TJ Hockenson in 2026, and it's the highest number any tight end is carrying on any NFL roster this season. Let that sink in for a second. The highest in the entire league. In a position where the elite options have diversified and multiplied, where Kyle Pitts is sitting pretty in Atlanta, where George Kittle is still operating on another plane of existence, where Travis Kelce is in Kansas City and Mark Andrews continues to be Baltimore's security blanket, the Minnesota Vikings decided to put their biggest capital investment at tight end in the hands of a player who is still searching for himself on the other side of one of the most catastrophic injuries in modern football. TJ Hockenson isn't just expensive, he's the most expensive tight end in professional football, and the reason that matters isn't because of what he's doing now. It's because of what he represents about the state of this franchise's decision-making. In 2023, Hockenson was a Pro Bowl player. He was the chess piece that Kevin O'Neal moved around the field to create mismatches. He was Justin Jefferson's security blanket on third down. He was the steady hand that made the Vikings' passing game hum. He was averaging 90 catches and nearly 1,000 receiving yards per season. He was everything a Vikings tight end should be. And then his knee exploded at the end of 2023. A torn ACL and MCL in one of football's worst ways. The kind of injury that changes careers. The kind of injury that forces organizations to ask themselves uncomfortable questions about whether a player can ever return to what they were before. Fast forward to 2025, and the numbers tell a story that Minneapolis fans don't want to hear. 51 receptions, 438 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. Those aren't the numbers of a guy worth $15.6 million. Those are the numbers of a player still searching for his identity, still trying to find his rhythm, still proving that he belongs in the conversation with the elite of his position. And here's what makes this situation even more painful. Bleacher Report's Brad Gahn took to the airwaves this week and handed Hockenson a label that nobody wants. The most overpaid player in the entire league at his position. The brutal truth is that it's hard to argue with him. On March 7th, the Vikings and Hockenson's representation agreed to a contract restructure that saved Minnesota $5 million in cap space. It was a necessary move for a team that's been pulling every financial lever available just to stay competitive. But even after that adjustment, even after trying to find creative ways to ease the burden, Hockenson still carries the heaviest cap hit at his position in professional football. Kyle Pitts down in Atlanta isn't even close. George Kittle in San Francisco isn't carrying this burden. Evan Engram on the Jacksonville Jaguars is operating under significantly less pressure. But in Minneapolis, TJ Hockenson is out there in front, and not in the way that Vikings Nation wants. The question that has Minnesota's front office losing sleep is simple and devastating. Can Hockenson get back to Pro Bowl form in 2026, or is this the new normal? At 29 years old, heading into July, the window for a comeback is closing. The biological clock of professional sports waits for nobody, and injuries that strike at the wrong moment can fundamentally alter the trajectory of a career. Hockenson hasn't played like a franchise player since his injury, and the Vikings can't cut him now because of the restructure they just put in place. They can't easily trade him because who's going to take on a $15.6 million cap hit for a tight end coming off a major injury with declining production numbers? They're stuck. And being stuck in the salary cap in professional football is how dreams die before they even get off the ground. What the Vikings need is a resurrection story. They need Hockenson to put his head down and get back to work. They need him to prove that the player who was running elite routes and making game-winning catches in 2023 is still in there somewhere, just waiting for the body to cooperate and the confidence to return. They need him to remind the entire NFL what a healthy TJ Hockenson actually looks like. Because if he can't, this contract is going to follow this franchise like a ghost through every free agency period, every draft conversation, and every moment where the Vikings come up just short of the promised land. A legend says goodbye, and the reason will break your heart. But just when you thought the Minnesota Vikings couldn't hit themselves with another difficult reality, Adam Thielen decided to close the book on one of the greatest underdog stories in NFL history. 542 catches, 6,751 receiving yards, 57 touchdowns. 146 games wearing the purple and gold. Those are the numbers that Adam Thielen carved into the fabric of this franchise over a career that nobody saw coming from a kid out of Minnesota State Mankato who signed as an undrafted free agent and refused to accept the narrative that he didn't belong. For over a decade, Adam Thielen was the antidote to every underdog story in the NFL. He was proof that you didn't need to be a high draft pick to become a Pro Bowl receiver. You didn't need the 5-star pedigree or the ESPN highlight reel coming out of college. You needed heart. You needed resilience. You needed to be willing to work harder than everyone else in the room and prove to the doubters that they were wrong. Thielen did all of that and then some. He became a pillar of this community. He became a leader in the locker room. He became the kind of teammate that every organization wanted because he brought something intangible to the table that no amount of athletic ability could manufacture. And this week, on March 27th, Adam Thielen appeared on KFAN, the sports radio station in Minneapolis, and explained with complete honesty exactly why he decided to walk away from the game. The reason he gave didn't mention aching joints or a declining body. It didn't reference his age or the physical wear that comes with 13 seasons in professional football. Instead, Thielen explained that he left because of the way people looked at him. "I felt it in the way that the coaches looked at me and the management looked at me," Thielen said. "When I went into year 10, it might have been after year 10 where I was like, oh, they don't look at me as the same player." Whether I believed it or maybe proved it or whatever, I think there's just this age and years that you kind of hit and it's like, all right, we got to figure out a new role for him, and they don't necessarily look at what you're actually able to do. Let that land for a moment. This isn't a player whose body had given out. This isn't a man who was running out of gas in the tank. This is a competitor who, by his own account and backed by actual speed data, was running faster at the end of his career than he had been in years. During the off-season training activities with the Carolina Panthers, Thielen hit a top speed that was directly comparable to his fastest recorded sprint from 2016, when he was in his absolute prime. In the twilight of his career, Adam Thielen matched his own peak athletic performance from a decade earlier. And still, the looks changed. The conversations shifted. The system quietly moved on. The organization began planning without him. The coaches started talking about finding him a new role, as if he could no longer be trusted to do the job he'd been doing at an elite level for over a decade. This is the invisible wall that every aging athlete eventually hits. It's not the body that gives out first. It's the belief system. It's the moment when the football world has collectively decided what you are, regardless of what the data says. That was really hard for me to take in, Thielen admitted. And then he said something that will echo through US Bank Stadium for years. But that sounds terrible. It doesn't sound terrible, Adam. It sounds human. It sounds like what every competitor who refuses to accept decline has to eventually reckon with. Thielen returned to Minnesota for a second stint before finishing his career with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but his heart never left the city. He was born an hour and a half away from Minneapolis. He built his entire life here. He raised his family here. He invested in this community. He gave everything he had to the people of Minnesota and the franchise that refused to give up on him when he was fighting his way onto an NFL roster. For Viking Nation, this is a moment to step back and honor what Thielen gave this franchise. The Thursday night catches, that became legendary. The 1,000-yard seasons that nobody saw coming. The locker room leadership that never made headlines but changed everything behind closed doors. The consistency, the reliability, the proof that an undrafted free agent could not only play at the highest level, but could exceed the accomplishments of guys who went in the first round. Adam Thielen is proof that the narrative matters less than the performance, and for that, this franchise owes him a permanent place in Minnesota Vikings history. The Travis Hunter, sighting that sent Viking Nation into complete meltdown. But just when the offseason seemed to have settled down, just when Minnesota fans thought they had time to process Thielen's retirement and come to terms with the Hockenson situation, something happened that sent Vikings Twitter into a complete frenzy. Picture this. It's a regular Tuesday night in Minneapolis. The Target Center is packed. The Timberwolves are taking on the Houston Rockets. Anthony Edwards is on the floor doing his thing. The energy is electric. And then, sitting courtside, just a couple of seats away from Timberwolves head coach Chris Finch, someone spots him. Travis Hunter, the number 2 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. The freakish two-way cornerback and wide receiver who plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The generational talent who can line up on offense and catch passes and then turn around and lock down opposing receivers on the defensive side of the ball. Travis Hunter in Minneapolis. At a basketball game. Courtside. Why? Viking Nation did not wait for context. The theories exploded like fireworks on the 4th of July. Was he visiting the Vikings facility? Was management working him out? Did Minnesota have some inside track to negotiate a trade? Had the Jaguars given Hunter's representation permission to explore options with other franchises? Is this the moment where the Vikings finally make the splash move that puts them over the top? For 48 hours, an entire fan base allowed itself to dream. And honestly, can you blame them? Imagine Travis Hunter in purple and gold. Imagine Brian Flores deploying him as a shutdown cornerback who can lock up any receiver in the NFC North while also giving the Vikings options on the offensive side of the ball. Imagine Kevin O'Neal, one of the most creative play callers in professional football, designing packages to line Hunter up on offense next to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Imagine the chaos that creates for opposing defenses. Imagine the nightmares that opposing coordinators have trying to figure out how to account for a player who can do everything. In just 7 games during his rookie season, before a knee injury ended his year, Hunter caught 28 passes for 298 yards and a touchdown, while also allowing only a 50% completion percentage when lining up as a cornerback. As the number 2 overall pick in the 2025 draft, his ceiling is absolutely stratospheric. The potential is limitless. The possibility of what he could become is the kind of thing that keeps front offices awake at night, dreaming about what their franchise could look like if they could somehow add that kind of talent to their roster. But here's where the dream dies, and it dies with brutal efficiency. Darren Wolfson, one of the most connected NFL insiders covering the Minnesota Vikings, appeared on Score North's Purple Daily and shut down every single one of those theories with surgical precision. No wiggle room. No hope, just the cold, hard truth. Travis Hunter was in Minneapolis for an Adidas shoot. There's an Adidas connection with Anthony Edwards, and Hunter was in town to film a commercial with Ant-Man. He wasn't there for a trade meeting. He wasn't there for a physical. He wasn't there for a secret facility visit where the Vikings front office was pitching him on the vision for the future. He was there for a shoe commercial, and just like that, the dream evaporated. The Jaguars have shown absolutely no indication that they're willing to move Hunter. With a knee injury already in his history, Jacksonville will want to see him fully healthy before making any roster decisions around their prized second overall pick. Hunter is expected to move primarily to cornerback in 2026 after the injury limited his two-way usage during his rookie season. So the Hunter in Purple Fantasy, as electric as it was to imagine for 48 hours, was never real. But the fact that Viking Nation erupted the moment he walked into a Minneapolis arena tells you everything about the hunger this fanbase has for elite talent. It tells you about the desperation for a franchise-altering move. It tells you that Minnesota fans know what's at stake. They understand that the window is closing. They can feel that this team is close to something special, but they're not quite there yet. What this all means for Minnesota's future. 3 stories. 1 message. The Minnesota Vikings are navigating one of the most complex off-seasons in franchise history. They're balancing a bloated salary cap situation. They're bringing in a new quarterback. They're trying to figure out what their receiver room looks like beyond Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. They're questioning whether their most expensive tight end can return to form. They're saying goodbye to legends. And they're watching every other team in the NFC North make moves and asking themselves if they're keeping up. Here's what's happening right now in Minneapolis. Jonathan Greenard's trade situation remains completely unresolved. The wide receiver 3 spot is still empty. Kyler Murray is waiting for the pieces that will make this offense truly dangerous. And the draft is right around the corner with pick 18 in Minnesota's hands. The NFC North is not sleeping. Detroit is hungry, Green Bay is reloading, Chicago is watching. Every move Minnesota makes or doesn't make shapes the division race before a single snap of the 2026 season is even played. This is the moment where franchise-altering decisions get made. This is the moment where front offices separate themselves from the middle of the pack. This is where champions start building their rosters. The Vikings need to figure out their identity. They need to decide whether they're truly committed to building around the skill positions or whether they're going to make a move that fundamentally changes their offensive philosophy. They need to figure out if TJ Hockenson can still be a centerpiece of this offense or if they need to explore other options at that position. They need to honor what Adam Thielen gave this franchise while understanding that the future belongs to younger players with more upside, and they need to do it all while managing cap situations that would make accountants weep. What's coming next? But here's what you need to know. There are 2 massive developments brewing right now that could completely change the trajectory of Minnesota's offseason. First, there is a rumor circulating, and let me be clear that this is a rumor and has not been confirmed by any official source, that the Vikings have internally identified their draft day target at wide receiver. And it is not the name most mock drafts are projecting at pick 18. That reveal could come any single day, and when it does, it's going to send shockwaves through Minneapolis and the entire NFC North. Second, Jonathan Greenard's situation has a brand new development brewing. A team that was not previously connected to him just had their name surface in trade conversations this week. And if the price is right, Minnesota might not be able to say no. The dominoes are starting to fall. The pieces are starting to move. The question is which one goes first. Final word. Skull Nation, here's what you need to do right now. 1. Smash that like button if you believe the Vikings are closer to a championship window than anyone outside Minnesota wants to admit. 2. Drop a comment with your honest take. What is the single most important move this front office still needs to make before week 1? Is it securing the wide receiver 3 spot? Is it resolving the Jonathan Greenard situation? Is it hoping that TJ Hockenson returns to Pro Bowl form? Is it finding a way to reload the defense? Tell me what you think. 3. Subscribe, because every subscriber is another voice in the crowd, and we're about to make the NFC North feel the pressure that's building in Minneapolis. Because here's the truth about the Minnesota Vikings entering this offseason. They're not as far away as the national media wants you to believe. They're not as stuck as some of the takes you're reading on social media suggest. They're at a crossroads, and the decisions they make right now will determine whether they're celebrating in January or explaining what went wrong in February. The chaos in Minneapolis is just getting started. Stay locked. More bombs are coming. We ride together.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.